What's up, guys? Tim Little, Matt Allen. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin, and welcome back to another 2024 Holiday Buyer's Guide video for you. Today we are talking everything jerkbaits.
The jerkbait is one of those techniques that every angler should have in their lineup. It is just a flat-out fish catcher. Jerkbaits are one of a handful of baits that trigger a feed response in bass, even when they're not necessarily in the mood to be feeding. It can trigger a reaction strike. Now, the category can be overwhelming, like a lot of categories, but our goal today is really to narrow it down for you. There's only a handful of baits here. We recently did an in-depth jerkbait video. We will link that in the description, along with some of the previous buyer's guides. If you guys have missed this series, we're well into the buyer's guide series now. We're going every single day at this point. But if you've missed some of those previous videos, we'll link those in the description as well. But today is just a quick rundown of some of our favorite key baits and a little bit of a description of what we use each one for, so that if you're looking for something while the Tackle Warehouse sale on hard baits is going on, you have a starting point. Or if you're sending this to a loved one going into the holidays, maybe they're doing some holiday shopping, you have that option as well, where there's some information for them too. But everything is linked in the video description below. There's links to each bait straight to Tackle Warehouse, so they're really easy to find. With that, you want to kick us off?
Sure. You know, like Matt said, a jerkbait for me is one of those baits that's tied on most every month of the year, right? It doesn't matter if you're fall, you're going aggressive flash, or you're going into the winter where you're going more finesse-y, subtle. A jerkbait is one of those baits, like Matt talked about, you can trigger that core predatory instinct, that reaction bite. So it doesn't matter if the fish are kind of shut down or if they're super aggressive. These jerkbaits can generate bites when a lot of other baits can't. And like he said, also we just did a huge in-depth video on that, so we're going to kind of go over these fairly quickly. But these are the must-haves if you're a guy that likes to throw a jerkbait or you're looking to get into jerkbait fishing. These baits right here will cover you through the year. All right, first up, we're going to go with the tried and true. Actually, these are more finesse-y, cold.
Do the family, yeah.
Yeah, cold water jerkbaits. We're starting with the Megabass Vision 110. This is kind of the staple in jerkbait fishing. This is...
I don't even know if it's a staple, right?
It's the standard. It's the standard, yeah. It's the standard in jerkbait fishing. All these other jerkbaits are based off of it.
They're judged by it. Every brand is judged by the 110.
So the Megabass, the 110, it's just a dialed-in jerkbait. It really... It balances really well. It's real stable in the water. Obviously you get those Megabass colors, right? Just the Japanese, that precise colors, so many different colors, sharp hooks, just everything is top notch on the Megabass. So that is the 110. Now adding to that is going to be the 110 plus 1. Again, it's going to have a bigger lip on it, more dive angle, gets that bait down. So different depths, right? So the 110 plus 1, again, that is the standard right there. And then the Junior, the 110 Junior, a little bit downsized bait. You know, both of us have had a lot of luck this year, the last couple years, on the 110 plus 1 Junior. And a lot of these other buyers, guys, we've talked about fishing pressure, downsizing baits, downsizing gear and line, all that stuff. The 110 Junior plus 1 has been the number one bait for me. Yeah. Probably you as well. But that whole family, the 110 family, is the standard in all of jerkbait fishing. That this bait really shines as we get into the colder water months, into your late December, early spring, and then that's going to transition into the warmer water baits that Matt's going to talk about here.
So with it, Tim just nailed it. You can break these baits into categories. A guy wants to get into jerkbait fishing. Do you need all these? No. Do you need some of them? Yes. There are 4 different things. The 110 series, they're so balanced, they're so tuned, they shine when that water's cold because they hover so well But there's other times of year where you want a bait that's not so subtle.
Yeah.
Or you're going so aggressive, it doesn't matter how it's stalling out, or at least doesn't matter as much. You're much more focused on flash, sound, and drawing power. Again, different times of year.
The reason these baits shine in the cold water, like Matt just talked about, the way they are balanced and everything, those fish, your cadence is going to be a lot less. The bait's not going to be worked nearly as quickly.
Right, long pauses.
Long pauses, and those fish just sit there and look at it. So any little issue with that bait, those fish are going to peel off, right? So that's why that is the standard. When you can get a lot more reactive, a lot more flash, those fish have to react. They don't have as much time to sit there and investigate and evaluate what they are or not going to eat.
That's exactly right. So let me jump into these 4 with flash in mind. As we go into, I mean, we're headed into the heart of winter now, right? Cold water. It's obvious where you should spend the bulk of your time. And you're deciding between shallow and deep, and you're deciding between size. That's how big are your bait fish. That's how you're deciding which vision to throw. As we head towards spring, and then later on, as we leave spring, and then again going into fall, that's all the times where flash, sound, vibration are the deal. So full-size baits, I have 2. We've got the Shimano World Minnow. It's got flash boost in it. You can see it shine in there. I'm holding that thing as still as I can, and the interior of that bait continues to flash. That's that secondary movement that real fish have, real bait fish have, that bass are looking for when they're deciding if something is real or fake. And that's very hard to imitate, but that does a great job of it. The other one is the Jackal Re-Range. That Re-Range throws so much light. This bait is designed not top heavy, but it's wider at the top than the bottom. Thin belly, wide back, and as a result, when you rip it, when you pop that rod, that bait rolls, and every time it rolls, it throws light. We've seen it so much in underwater footage, and that light shining out there is just, it's a beacon, right? It just draws those fish. They come for that. Same thing with the flash coming out of that World Minnow. Now going smaller, I have 2 for you. I have one that's shallow, one that's deep. Both of these are special baits. This is from Shimano again. This is the Zoomverno. It's the Zoomverno 95 SP is the full name. But the Zoomverno, fairly small bait, shallow diving bait, and again, it has that flash boost. Here's the deal with this bait. It's super aggressive. When you're snapping this bait, jerk baits are all, when you snap them and pause, they're going to dart, right? But some baits just sort of, and other baits are all over the place. The Zoomverno is one of those baits that is spastic. When you want fish to react, aggressive, warmer water, that bait is amazing. The fish commit to it unlike other baits. I mean, it's a full send when they decide they're going to eat that thing. Now, in balance to that, sometimes the fish aren't up shallow. We need to get down to them. Going back to Mega Bass, this is their X-Nanahan series. This is the X-Nanahan Plus 2, the deeper bill. It'll dive deeper. I use these as a 1-2 punch. Shallower water, deeper water. But again, a very aggressive bait. Similar profile to like the 110 Junior Plus 1, but this is a more reactive, darty bait. A lot more hunt and action in that bait, and you just use it at a different time. I think I did pretty good at not going too crazy on that.
Yeah. Want to knock out those 3 real quick?
Yeah, sure. I'll just keep right on going. So to round it out, larger profiled baits, because we talk a lot about going smaller, but there is still a time to go larger. 2 real standouts there is going to be, again, the Mega Bass, the 110 Max LBO. It is a 110. It is just a bigger 110. It's got a great weight transfer in it, so you can really bomb that thing. Then the other one is, again, the Re-Range, but instead of being that standard 110 Re-Range, this is a 130. Quite a bit larger. It's literally just matching size of bait fish. If you're around gizzard shad instead of threadfin, or you're around shiners instead of little bait fish, Anytime those fish are chasing that big bait, you go to that bigger jerkbait to match that. And then one last one. This is one that I've neglected the last year or two, but it is a bait that will just forever be in my lineup for one very simple reason. For me personally, this is what I caught my personal best jerkbait fish on. My biggest jerkbait fish ate the Pointer 100. The thing about the Pointer 100...
12-pounder, mind you.
A 12-pounder. It was a good one. The thing about a pointer that you need to understand, specifically the Pointer 100, it is special within that Lucky Craft line. It runs the exact same bead count as a Lucky Craft LV 500 lipless. So as I'm saying this, I'm thinking Clear Lake, right? We all know that, where the LV 500 is king. For the guys that are on that fishery, or fisheries where that LV just has worked for you, the Pointer 100 literally has the identical sound. So an LV, you're fluttering on bottom, the Pointer, you're working over the top of them, but the sound profile is identical, and at times it is the deal. I do not get as many bites on a Pointer as I do some of these other baits. That's the truth of it. New baits have come out since that bait became available, and there's just amazing options now that didn't used to exist. But it will always have a special place, at least in my heart, just because of my history with that bait. But it's, I mean, we've both crushed with, well, all of these, right? There's a lot of history throwing jerkbaits. You want me to take a break and I'll do this at the end, or where are we going to go from here?
Sure. Let's talk line. Line's one of those key deals. You know, when you're especially cold water jerkbait fishing, you know, it's really important to make sure you're snapping that rod tip with slack in your line, and you're counting that your long pauses, right? Well, line affects a jerkbait as much as hooks or anything, right? Absolutely. So we use basically 2 lines for jerkbaiting. We use 10 and 12 pound fluorocarbon, depending on the bigger baits, the smaller baits, and the depth. The smaller the line, the deeper the bait can go. Now with the advancements of forward-facing sonar, we can sit there and watch exactly how deep our bait is going and how deep it needs to be going, and we can adjust our line accordingly. 10 pound Sunline FC Sniper, that is our tried and true FINESSE line. It's just one of those lines that we've used for years.
It just works.
Never had any issues. It's just kind of the standard in fluorocarbon. And then another line that we've been playing with the last year and a half or so is that Daiwa, that J Fluor. This is an amazing line. It's just super abrasion resistant. You know, we've had lots of casts, no respooling. It's just one of those lines that kind of stood out the last year and a half.
Out on its own, yeah.
That we've been really, really satisfied with. So if you find yourself in dingier water, or you want to go with, you know, a green line, that guy right there is awesome, and so is the Sniper.
All right, now I want to go on a little bit of a tangent here just for a minute, and then we're going to get to rods. I want to talk hooks, and while this isn't like a flashy thing that everyone wants to hear, it is critical with a jerkbait, like critical enough to stop a buyer's guide and teach for just a moment. Tim and I have shot a ton of underwater footage of bass eating jerkbaits. Something that we learned during that time is how bass eat different baits. Bass tend to slash a jerkbait. They tend to aim for the front of it, but they also slash them. There are some baits that bass will inhale, other baits they slash. They slash jerkbaits, they slash topwaters. Those are the big 2. Anytime you've got a bait that they're slashing rather than inhaling, having a hook point that is straight up and down rather than tipped in will make a world of difference for you. So the other thing we noticed in underwater footage is that these fish are fast. We actually had one in particular where we were filming underwater. This bass ate a jerkbait, blew it back out, and we actually went frame by frame and timed it, then got online because we were so amazed at how fast this fish was that we started taking speed tests online. You remember that?
Yeah.
Reaction time of us
watching it, trying to react, we couldn't do it.
We literally could not react fast enough to have set the hook on the fish. She ate it fully, and it was a big one. That's why we were fascinated. She ate it all the way and blew it back out faster than we could physically swing had we felt that bite. That was mind-blowing. Here's what you need to understand about a jerkbait. Because of the way they eat it, the vast majority of your fish that you catch on a jerkbait, whether you know it or not, have hooked themselves before you swung. The only way they can do that is if your hooks are sharp, and I mean sticky sharp. The problem is that with jerkbaits, getting hooks that are sticky sharp and that are strong and that don't mess up the action of the bait. They don't weigh enough, they make your bait rise. They weigh too much, they make your bait sink. Getting perfect balance is so hard. Luckily, we have spent an insane amount of time working on this. On the Vision 110s, we use a Gamakatsu G Finesse. In the video description, along with linking all the other items, we're going to link the specific hooks that we use, right down to the size, so that you can get the right hook for your baits to maximize your shot at these fish hooking themselves. The other one on the Shimanos, because the Shimano World Minnow and that Zoom Verno are major players for me now. That and the 110 series are definitely the main staples in the lineup. On the Shimanos, they are running Hayabusa hooks. We have figured out the exact sizes for those. And on the World Minnow, it's literally an exact match. On the Zoom Verno, we're able to upgrade to the NRB coating, which is a slick coating, which makes it even easier to stick them. But we have the exact sizes to be able to perfectly upgrade hooks without impacting the action of the baits, and you literally will hook more fish. It's amazing the difference. And with that, if you want any more, you've got to watch the seminar video that we'll link in the description, but there's a little bit of teaching for you. It is that important.
All right, let's talk rods real quick. Through the years, we've played around with many different jerkbait rods, trying to get the right action, the right length, all that stuff. Just when you're working a jerkbait, you don't want the rod tip slapping the water. You don't want it hitting the gunnel of the boat. There's a lot of things that go on when you're jerkbaiting. So the X-Pride 610 medium is what we found as the best all-around jerkbait rod. Doesn't matter if you're throwing a finesse jerkbait, you know, an aggressive jerkbait, paired with a 70-ish size reel, spooled with 10 to 12 pound fluorocarbon. That is our bread and butter. That's our go-to combo. You know, having an Aldebaran on there, that just reduces
at any price. That combo is mind-blowing.
It is awesome. And the good thing about the 610 medium is it's such a universal rod, but it has a good enough tip to get that bait going side to side. You know, you can hit it at slack line, and then it's got enough backbone to really set those hooks. And when those fish come up smallmouth spots, when they come and jump, it loads and unloads slow enough that they don't come off.
Yeah.
That is our bread and butter jerkbait rod. Now, with that said, what's cool about the Shimano line, doesn't matter if you're in the Corrado line or the SLX line, that 610 medium,
it carries down.
That power and action in that rod carries down all three lines, so it doesn't have to break the bank if you want to get an awesome jerkbait rod at the right length, the right action, right power, and that doesn't break the bank.
Yep. For years, we have said that X-Pride at any price is the baddest jerkbait rod there is. You put an Aldebaran on that thing, it is mind-blowing.
Super lucky.
With that said, we are constantly looking, and there are a lot of high-end guys who like high-end tackle that wanted an answer on the best jerkbait rod, and we're always looking. And I finally found one that I'm really happy with. From Megabass in the Destroyer line, this is the 110 stick. The 110 stick is a killer. Action-wise, this and an X-Pride are nearly identical. The only difference is this rod is even shorter. It's a 6.5 rather than a 610, so it's even lighter in the hand. The blank itself is lighter. It's a high-end combo. Paired with that Aldebaran, it's a dream. I particularly enjoy it with all of the smaller jerkbaits where I'm really just snapping that rod tip. I've really enjoyed that combo. And then some guys want to jerkbait on spinning tackle. And we spent years looking for the right spinning combo, because honestly, building a jerkbait rod is arguably the most difficult rod action for a company to build, because it's a combination of being crisp enough, stiff enough to get the action you need, but soft enough to not rip the hooks out once you hook a big, I mean, it's a nightmare for these guys. The one that we found that we can say, yes, that works. Again, Megabass, this time in their Orochi XX series, this is the Ronin. The Ronin, I pair it up with a Vanford. So mid-priced combo, not a budget combo, not an insanely over-the-top combo, but just paired to a Vanford 2500, I have had fantastic success with this. I really like using the jerkbait myself when I'm doing that slow, cold water winter thing, and I'm just slow working that thing. It's comfortable for me. You've got that bigger, wide handle turn on the spinning rod, and it's just a comfortable motion for me to fish that bait that way. But some guys like fishing spinning full time. It's just, it's one or the other.
Yeah, in all these buyer's guides, guys, we preach to you, stay in your budget. Don't go over budget for whatever reasons, right? Buy what you can afford. With that said, a jerkbait is one of the, probably that and topwater are one of the most active techniques of fishing, right? So having a rod that is lighter, having a reel that is lighter is literally going to save your wrist and your elbow at the end of the day. So if you're
noticeable.
Yeah, so it's one of those techniques that if you can justify getting that lighter rod, getting that better, more sensitive, lighter combo, go with it, because it will, I mean, when you're throwing a jerkbait all day, it kills your elbow, your shoulder, your wrist. Depends on how hard you're ripping to. Can be your ribs, but that is one of those techniques that if you can't afford it, it is in your budget, try and get the lighter stuff.
Definitely. All right, guys, with that, we're going to wrap this one up. Again, these buyer's guides are continuing to roll from here almost to Christmas, 7 days a week. So we will see you again tomorrow. Tomorrow we're talking crankbaits, and we'll just keep right on rolling from there. If you are seeing this as it's happening, the Tackle Warehouse sale is going on hard bait, so you can save some money on this stuff. If you catch it a little late, we tried, right? We did what we could. Seriously, guys, we hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.